Just one day in, and we already have upsets galore. Brackets getting busted. Top draft prospects out of the tournament. We'll see you in a couple months. Your time is over. We're going to break down the first day of March Madness. Next, let's party. Welcome to another episode of the No Ceilings Podcast and Night Shift on a weeknight. Stephen, you know that we got March Madness going, so we had to come recap a really fun slate of games today. I'm Tyler Metcalf. He is Stephen Gilaspie. Stephen, how are we doing?
Metcalf, I'm awesome. Today was sidelined a little bit because I don't know if you know this, but my son broke his ankle
Yeah.
last week, and so today I went to go get him fitted for a new boot to kind of help support his ankle. So as I was waiting in the doctor's office, I'm like watching some of these incredible moments and like trying to be a good Samaritan and citizen. But man, March Madness, like I'm sneaking in everywhere I can. How are you feeling, brother?
Oh, I'm exhausted, but in the best way possible. Just 4 games going nonstop. Stimulus overload. ADD is in full drive. It's the best time of the year. It's almost overwhelming. It's almost stressful, being like, oh my god, there are games everywhere. But I love this week and next week so goddamn much. It's just an absolute blast, and I just guys where I'm like, oh man, I don't trust him at all. Like, I don't think this team's going to show up. They obviously show up and pull off a big upset or a big win, and vice versa. So it's like all of the regular season work that goes into like, oh, I'm going to be ready for this March Madness. This bracket's going to look so much better. It never matters.
Yeah, it really doesn't, man. I'm gonna ask you this. This will be a fun. Of course, our I love our fans. They're already being really really fun. Um, I'm gonna ask you this before we get rolling and breaking down the games. How's your bracket looking, homie?
Oh, duh, done. I'm not done, but like every upset that I had didn't work. Everyone that I didn't have hit. South Florida, just and we'll get into all the details, but they killed me. Um, yeah, just not a good bracket. But what about you?
Yeah, four losses for me. I don't think hardly anyone called the Wisconsin High Point game going the way that it did. The game that we're going to be breaking down here soon, BYU versus Texas. I thought BYU was going to be able to pull that one out. I missed the USF against Louisville game. And then Ohio State TCU was such a pick 'em, and I waffled on that so much before I committed. And last second, I was just go, let me just go Ohio State because I
I
don't
did the
know.
same.
I was like, I don't know why. I think that they're gonna win. So just off of vibes, but not too bad for the first night. But we still got games going on as we're doing the show. So everybody watching, really appreciate you taking some time to hang out with us while the madness is still continuing.
And we'll try and keep an eye on some of these later games, but I don't think there are any major matchups that we're necessarily missing. There might be some chaos if anything pops up while we're recording. We'll obviously pivot to it, but we got to start with the biggest matchup of the day, especially from a draft prospect standpoint. Number 11 Texas beating number 6 BYU 79-71. We got the AJ DeBonsa versus Dalen Swain matchup, and I don't think it disappointed. It obviously
No.
could have been a little more electric, a little more dynamic, but I thought both these guys showed up in a really impressive way where you can obviously nitpick stuff, and if the diehards will go after the other side as much as they want to. But I thought both these guys played a really, really nice game tonight.
They did, and it felt like AJ's was more of like a steady outpour of production where Swain kind of like waffled. He's done this quite a few times throughout the year to where like second half, once he's got a real good feel for the game, the flow, and like who's doing what, he really like that's when his intelligence will really kick in, and he turned it on later in the second half. I just want to shout out AJ right off the rip because we're having a fun show. Like this is not going to be like too crazy analysis here, but AJ's so daggone good, man. Like I don't think that his numbers, especially the one assist to five
Yeah,
turnovers, like people will see that and like, ew, gross,
classic
yuck,
AJ
whatever.
just kills
Classic
the
AJ.
offense. Just it's all him, ball hog over dribbling, black hole. I didn't get that vibe from him tonight.
Not at all. Like, and he's such a winner, man. Like, even in a loss, just way that he carries himself, he wants the ball in the moments. He's finding passes. Like, when Kata was out, came back in the second half, there was one play that I highlighted where he swung the ball to Kata and he was fouled immediately before he can get a shot off. Like, that's an assist stolen from
Yeah.
AJ right there. So I was really impressed from him. Nathan and I were talking in the group chat a little bit about, AJ is the number one pick. Like, this is a big narrative right now. And considering the night that Cam had, we'll touch on that. Considering what's going on with Darren, I'm gonna write about that for NoCeilingsNBA.com. It's like AJ has such a path to be the number one guy, and I feel like even at a loss, he did a lot to kind of help that narrative steer his direction.
Yeah, and it's always tough when you see a guy shoot 1 of 7 with, like you said, 1 assist to 5 turnovers. If you're just looking at the numbers, it's a bad ratio. It's not what you wanna see. Um, and 11 for 25 isn't, it's kinda underwhelming. Like, just the scoring efficiency at first glance isn't there, but then when you really kinda dive into the film and just see how he was being defended and how Texas was loading up on him, and how just as a team, BYU shot 18% from 3. Obviously, AJ's 1 for 7 factored into that, but he had a couple gorgeous driving kicks where he collapsed the entire defense, kicked it out to Davis or Mboop in the corner. Mboop won't even shoot it. Davis bricked a couple. Rob Wright 0 of 4. Kostic 2 of 7 from 3. So no one could really find their groove at all. And I do think the outside shot is a big question for AJ, but
Yeah.
the overall dominance, I mean, 35 points, 12 free throws, 11 rebounds. I thought there's some good defensive stuff along with some really bad stuff. Again, another game with no stocks, but he's just such an offensive hub that it's at his size, which is insane. And he's so crafty getting downhill. Some of the footwork stuff in the paint, extending those drives, changing pace and direction at the same time. It's so impressive.
And even the defensive numbers, how I just touched on, like one assist got stolen from AJ in the box score. A block, it was kind of a bang bang play. This was after Tremont Mark blocked him on a drive going to the basket. Tremont was going to the basket in himself. AJ's closing speed on this, attempted block, it ended up being called
Yeah.
a goaltend. But the closing speed, the use of athleticism and length, that's the type of stuff that you look at and you say, okay, this is something that I can work with to go along with the 35 and 10 that he's giving me right now. And we could talk about the 3-point stuff too. Like, how many times do we need to do this with a top prospect, Metcalf, where it's like, oh no, he can't shoot. Like, how's he going to be impactful in the NBA? Like, we see these
Yeah.
guys go through this all the time. Again, keep plugging my work over at NoCeilingsNBA.com. I compare AJ to what some of the same sort of like positional archetypes that he looks like he could kind of slot into. And he's so far advanced compared to what those guys were in their draft season.
Yeah.
And we want these guys to be just kind of like Instapot ready. And there's a projection aspect to scouting. And when you look at AJ, it's like he does so many good things well. Once we polish the jumper, it's game over for the league. Like, it's easy to see how this guy could be a star at the next level, despite, zero stocks on a box score, 1 of 7 from the 3-point line. It watching the game, you can see it. It's very apparent. And again, I think that a game like this, even in a loss, even though it's not the most efficient game, these are the type of performances from AJ that NBA front offices look at and like, yeah, we can work with a guy like this.
Yeah, and he's like a legit 6'9" verging on 6'10". Like, he is massive with insane
Ginormous.
physical tools. The balance with him is, and just how he handles contact with the ball. It is so, so special for his age. And I obviously wish he was an awesome shooter. He's not right now,
Sure.
but we still get like flashes of when the mechanics look good, the shot looks gorgeous. And the biggest thing is he just tends to shoot a flat ball. I thought a lot of those 3-point attempts, were kinda rushed and trying to force the issue late in the game. You could probably take 3 or 4 out of that 7 attempts, and it looks totally different. But when you're trying to get back in the game and no one else can get it going anyways, I'm okay with AJ trying to force that, but in those attempts, we saw that flat release get even a little more exacerbated. The footwork was a little iffy, but
Yeah.
we've had plenty of examples throughout this year too, where when his feet are set, when he gets that proper trajectory on his shot, it looks gorgeous. So a few tinkering things here and there, reps. I have no worries about him being like just a flat out bad shooter. Is he going to be Steph Curry, Kevin Durant? No, he's not. No one is those guys. But can he be mid 30s for his career on decent volume? Yeah, and if he is, that is more than enough.
Yeah, I mean, what's impressive to me, and again, we're going to talk about some other players, right? Where on the night AJ was the only one who really could get anything going, but it didn't feel like the pressure from Texas was too much for him to make decisions with the ball in his hands. Like again, we're going to talk about other top prospects who similar situations, they kind of were seeing ghosts out there. AJ under pressure, being the only one who could really do anything for this team tonight, still got to every single spot that he wanted. Still got to extremely, incredibly comfortable shots from the elbow. You know, starting the game off, going up against Dalen Swain, who is a draft Twitter darling,
Mhm.
one of these defensive stoppers who could eventually be the hub of a proficient and efficient offense in the NBA. AJ just taking this dude to task. And again, this is if this is a bad game, like oh my, like again,
Yeah,
these
yeah,
quote unquote off nights and things that he's not able to do, like wait until he's in the system to where he's getting a little bit more help, where Kata's not getting elbowed by the sledgehammer that is Matas Vokatitis in the post and getting pulled out of the game. So there goes your only reliable big man. You've already without Richie Saunders. The Kennard Davis experience has not been great. The Rob Wright experience has had moments where it's peaked at a kind of a good level, and then
yeah.
the lows have been incredibly low. And again, AJ is still able to handle pressure, still able to slither his way into the spots that he wants to get to, and find very efficient shots for him to be able to get off comfortably and make them.
And the turnovers, 5 turnovers on the night, it's bad. Gotta clean
Yeah.
it up, but also that, like, it's that same type of earlier in the year, we were talking about, like, Bennett Sturts and the types of gap coverage and help defense that opponents were throwing at him, daring anyone else to beat him. That's the exact type of stuff that we saw AJ facing tonight, and obviously the handle still needs to get a little tighter and decision making needs to get a little quicker, but especially late, there were a handful of possessions where they were blitzing him really aggressively out of those empty corner pick and rolls, and there's zero movement from anyone else off ball, and they're just looking at AJ, being like, "All right, now do something." And it's like someone has to make themselves open, and that's where the loss of Richie Saunders really comes into play because he was one
Yep.
of the best off ball movers, finding those open pockets to release into to make himself available. But also a lot of that is probably also a symptom of AJ's tendency to over dribble at times and try and string out things till the very last second. So, there is some chicken and the egg stuff there. But I didn't think AJ's teammates really did him any favors with their off ball movement, making themselves available, exploiting those open pockets, given the really aggressive and really successful pick and roll coverage that Texas was consistently throwing at him. But then even on the defensive end, this has been my biggest area of struggle with BYU all year. They have been
Hmm.
awful on defense from start to finish. And I thought
Yep.
some of their defensive schemes, their execution, AJ included, with their screen navigation, rotations, communication, it was abysmal.
Yeah, it was, man. Like we talked about the 1 to 7 from AJ. Okay, the rest of like the team as a whole shot 4 of 22. So this team shot 18% from deep. So we're gonna, in one hand, say AJ isn't getting assists and there's a lot of turnovers. Nobody, and the conductor in the chat, shout out the conductor 3449, kind of echoing the same thing that you just mentioned, Metcalf. Like no one is doing anything off the ball. Kostic was the one guy who I was like, okay, maybe we find a creative way to get
Yeah.
him the ball. He looks like he could be like a projectable shooter at some degree. He couldn't get it going either. Rob Wright, never short of confidence in himself and his abilities. He got some looks. He was way better in the paint than he was as a off-ball jump shooter. So
Yes.
if you're going to Wright to do that aspect of his game, you're taking AJ out of the area of his game where he's more comfortable. But AJ even still demonstrated the willingness to play off the ball with the way that the rest of this roster is constructed too. So I'm just so much more confident in projecting him now than I was earlier in the year, even when I still had him a top 3 guy. He's just one of the things that I value, and I know a lot of us do in evaluations, is in season improvement. Go back and watch what AJ was doing in his processing at the beginning of the
That
season
Nebraska game
and
was
watch this game.
bad.
Yes, absolutely. Go back and look at what AJ was doing 3, 4 months ago and look at what he's doing now. That upward trajectory. Now
Yep.
put him on a team where he's going to have better teammates. And let's just see how high, how steep that arrow trends upward.
We got to pivot to Texas because they did end up winning this game. And the number one name, I think really the only name worth noting from a draft perspective, Dalen Swain, junior wing, 6'8", 220, had a solid game. I didn't think he was anything outlandish, but finished with 14 points on 6 of 12 shooting, 1 of 3 from 3, 1 of 1 from the line, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal, no blocks. I thought he was just solid. I appreciated that he took the AJ matchup early.
Yeah.
Didn't go great for him early, but I thought his rim pressure tonight, as it is in most games, was fantastic. Made some gorgeous kickouts, had that beautiful baseline drive into the reverse layup, had the kind of running hook shot plus the foul as well. So I thought his rim pressure was really good, but I kept wanting him to take over, make his impact felt a little more consistently throughout this game, despite the solid numbers and contribution he had.
I did too. It's just one of those things to where he was getting targeted, like for lack of a better term. Defensively, BYU was not afraid to go at him early in the
Yep.
game, which if you're giving up 8 of your opponent, like all 8 of your opponent's first 8 points, that could probably zap your confidence a little bit. So I attribute kind of his slower start to the game to, okay, BYU made it a point of emphasis to where not only AJ, but Rob Wright is going after you in the paint and converting buckets, right? He still did his normal Dalen Swain thing where even if the shots aren't falling, he's finding other ways to be impactful, right? With the vision, the playmaking, the natural feel that he possesses at his size. One of the things that a lot of us are who think that he could be something in the NBA, a lot of it has to do with the intersection of size and feel. He's also pretty strong considering his frame. He's got like that wiry strength, and he's gonna get after the glass as well. And once guys like Tremont Mark, the sledgehammer, my guy Matas Vokatitis, once he's rolling and BYU has to make adjustments to other players around him, you're able to see Dalen kind of pick and choose how he wants to get to the shots that he wants to get to. I love when he's in like that left corner. He'll kind of like jab step, slink his way, go left, attack baseline. And he is so crafty in terms of finishing angles and like how he can see how he can get the ball into the hoop around, a morass of defense.
Mhm.
I just love watching his processing in real time because there's something there. Like, I don't know how high the high is going to be with him at the next level, which is a concern because it's open to interpretation, let's say. But there's no denying that he sees things on the floor at a level to where only a few people in this draft class are able to see them. And at his size, that comes with some inherent value.
Yeah, and like glass half full, like optimistic 90th percentile outcome because we want to be excited about these guys. It's like, oh man,
Absolutely.
man, could this be this year's Franz Wagner coming out with his size, his defense, his rim pressure, the playmaking stuff. But I also feel like that's a really easy archetype to get tricked by
Oh, yes.
because we see those type of guys kind of come out and we're like, oh, the next Franz Wagner, and it's like, nope, and
Chandler Hutchinson, Jerome Robinson, like how many of these I've been guilty of it
no,
myself.
it's the same, and I'm not trying to fault or throw anyone who's a big time Swain believer under the bus because the tape is good, the numbers are good. There's a lot to love about Dalen Swain,
Cody
but it
Williams is looking good in the month of March for Utah too, right?
couldn't have been much worse earlier.
It's
But
true.
like that's the type of archetype where if they hit, man, do they return a ton of value, and even if they don't,
Hmm.
the baseline is really solid. Where it's like, all right, is he Terrence Mann? Like that's a really solid rotation player for a long time. So even though I have some questions about the peaks of what Swain could get to, and I can't get on board like the top 10 train that some people have, and if you do the work, awesome. Love it. I
Yeah.
can't quite get there, but I get it. I can understand it, and that baseline contribution of high passing field, good scoring touch, really good rim pressure, and on most nights, really good defense. That at worst is what, seventh man in a rotation?
Has to be. I mean, that your exact point of how good could this possibly be? Like, do you want to draft a player like that in the top 10? I think it's situational. When we did our war room this past time for, our mock draft, I brought up the idea of like, hey, Milwaukee's on the clock and we know that we're trading Giannis. Why not draft Dalen Swain just to kind of see? Because like, who else after him are you thinking could possibly return potential star value? Like, it's very risk reward, very boomer bust. But
Yeah.
again, we touched on it earlier. Not very many players in this class can see the floor and get to his spots the way that he can, who are not already listed, within the top 10 consensus speaking.
Well, one of the other games who had one of the top prospects in the 2026 NBA draft going on today, which ended up being one of the closest and most surprising games of the day,
Yeah.
Duke versus Siena. I thought this was a disaster of a game for Duke, who ended up winning 71-65, but they were down 16 at half. They didn't take the lead back until well into the second half. I think it was over the halfway point, maybe even like the three quarters point of the second half. They finally pulled ahead, and were able to cling to it. Siena didn't make a sub. Well, I guess they made one sub in like the final second or whatever. But they played five guys,
Yeah.
40 minutes today, and they outplayed Duke. I know the final score doesn't reflect that, but I thought from start to finish, they outplayed Duke. Their defensive scheme, their execution on that end of the floor, I thought was phenomenal. Mixing in man and zone, and every time Cam Boozer turned his back to a defender, that defender was immediately going in for the double and poking the ball loose, disrupting stuff, forcing it out of his hands, making him uncharacteristically uncomfortable and unsure and hesitant in the middle of the floor. And that's an area he's dominated all year. This was a different Cam Boozer we saw today. It's not changing my eval necessarily, but it's like, what is happening? Um, Duke should have been able to pick apart that zone, and they couldn't. And then even on the first half, their defense was horrendous, non-existent. And when you have a guy like Malik Brown, who's one of your senior leaders, saying at halftime, "Yeah, we thought this game was going to be a cakewalk." My guy, what are you doing? Some things can be internalized. We don't need to tell that to the national media. Keep that in the locker room. Keep that to yourself because you're down by 16 to a 16 seed who hasn't made a sub all day. I thought this was a really awful look for Duke.
I think that if the team saw the comments, like maybe that could be interpreted as him trying to motivate his guys. I don't know if Coach Shire has Malik Brown's halftime speech going on in the locker room without him in there. Like I don't there's no way for us to know, but that would be like the only way that I could see that being a logical reason for Malik Brown to do what he did. But you touched on it so much of the things that I agree on, man. Like, and I want to say this too, that Cam Boozer, for as talented as he is, much like some of the other prospects within this draft class, the stands and critics of him, they are so entrenched on their side that if
It
you're
doesn't matter what you
critical,
tell
it
them.
doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to be able to convince anyone of anything, right? I will say that, coming into this like I have had Cam Boozer at 4 on my board. And haven't always felt super great about it either, by the way. Like, that's a very hard take to have within this draft class. But games like this kind of illuminate some of the backing as to why I don't have him number 1 or number 2 within this, or even number 3, because there are some athletic concerns, there are some height concerns, or even positional versatility, defensive concerns that I have in this game. Kind of illuminated them, and
Yeah.
we talked about this too with our tournament preview piece that you and I did with Jam. And I touched on, like, I think that this matchup was going to be interesting because of Gavin Doty and Francis Fulfact, because their best players match up with Duke's best players relatively decently. And we saw that for the majority of this game. The Cam stuff is interesting because I don't think that he's a terrible player because
No.
of this game at all. Like he's still very important to this team. He's still going to be one of the best players within this class. You're concerned with some of the stuff that we saw. For instance, when he was rattled so much in the second half, and Sienna is kind of defending him like NBA defenses used to defend James Harden from behind to like defend him to block him like and throw off his offensive potency. Sienna kind of did their own rendition of that against Cam, where he caught it at the elbow. His closest defender was behind him, and he didn't dribble yet. He just had the ball, and Cam is visibly shook. He's like, I'm worried that if I drive forward, I'm going to get swarmed, and I don't have anybody who I can trust to kick the ball out to right now. That's how much Sienna really rattled Cam. So it's interesting to see how Duke was still able to, you know, snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat here. But if anything, it just illuminated the fact that like Cam is so impressive on this team. Without a true center next to him, it really caused him a lot of trouble. And there wasn't really any consistent help other than his brother, funnily enough, because that hasn't
Yeah.
been a thing for the majority of this season. But I understand the notion of like Cam needs help, but also like there was some things like as the best player that he just did not do that he needs to be respectfully criticized for, you know?
Yeah, I finished the game with 22 points on 4 of 11 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3, 13 of 14 from the line, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 turnovers, 0 steals, and 1 block. That's the area that really is frustrating for me because I think his defense compared to what we saw at Columbus the last 4
Mhm.
years in high school has fallen off a cliff. I feel like he's been a disaster on defense all year. I think some of that is scheme stuff where they try and hide him and Pat in the paint and don't have them closing out and really rotating and try and keep their movement pretty localized on the defensive end and keep them in the paint to grab rebounds. I get that, but and today we got a really great example of like, all right, is there a world in which he can play the five? I've been really skeptical. I didn't think he could
Mm-mm.
coming into this game. This just further reinforced it because I thought he was a disaster as the primary rim protector, especially in that first half. No one on Duke could contain drives. And then once they got to the rim and got to the paint, guys weren't scared of challenging Cam. Cam does a great job of staying vertical, but he never really deters the shot. Guys aren't afraid
Yeah.
of challenging him. He never ever does like that stay vertical and then locate the ball and then swipe down. Like obviously this guy's a very different player, but that's something that Chet Holmgren was one of the best I've ever seen at
Yeah.
Gonzaga, where he would rotate over from the weak side, stay vertical, but then once the shooter presented the ball and extended it away from their body, that's when he would pounce and smother it without fouling. We never get any of that stuff from Cam, and if he's not moving his feet on the perimeter either, I don't know what he's giving you on the defensive end outside of rebounding. He's an awesome, awesome defensive rebounder, and we can see what that immediately sparks with the transition stuff and his outlet passes. That's all great. But in a schematic way, he's almost purely a four for me. And that, especially when we're looking at these top three guys, that
Yeah.
does worry me some.
And I think that you're right to be concerned. And I know that we said that we're not going to let one game sway our opinion. And I think you and I are in that camp. But I do think that even if like you've been like team Cam this whole time and you saw this game and it put Cam in a different light, like yeah, you can say it's one game. It's just one piece of data. Like really this is the worst that he's looked all season long. And unfortunately, like the law of, recency is probably going to kick in here for a lot of people. That's not it for me, but I could understand how, again, if you're Team Cam and you're like, he's been my number one this whole time, you watch this game and you realize that, okay, he's probably not going to get triple teamed in the paint in the NBA, but he's going to be dealing with bigger athletes, longer athletes, quicker at every position.
Yeah.
Like if I turn my back to a defense in the NBA, the reaction time that they have to make digs or close out or pressure and have me like throw a bad pass, it's going to be so much quicker than what we've seen in college. So I could understand someone looking at Cam's performance tonight and maybe feeling a little bit rattled of having him number one within this class. I wouldn't, of course, advise anybody to be like, he's not in my top five anymore, of course, but if you want to take him down from like 1 to 2 or 3 or whatever the case, I could understand it from one game. Like I think it should be okay for like one game sample sizes to cause you to think a little bit more than what like the draft community would otherwise lead you to believe.
And you bringing up that issue with him that he had today with like those help digs from weak side defenders, and help defenders with gap coverage is crucial because I just look at the reigning national champions. Like, look, imagine him trying to drive against OKC and how good of hands guys like Casey Wallace and SGA and Jalen Williams and Alex Caruso and Chet
Caruso's
Holmgren
going to
and
throw a shoe at him. Yeah.
like they can throw any of those guys on him, really disrupt, get up under him, stay in front of him, and then guys are digging in from all over the place. Not to even factor in the weak side rim protector. Obviously, we're talking about the reigning champions, so they're going to be the best. But there are a lot of examples of that across the league, and if his handle is going to be as kind of elementary as it is and as stiff as it is, and he's not going to keep it really tight against that gap coverage against Siena, it's going to get better. None of this is to say that, like you were saying, none of this is to say that I'm totally out on Cam. He was 3 on my board coming into today. He's going to be 3 on my board when I go to bed tonight. And it still wouldn't shock me if he ends up putting up 35, 20, and 15 against TCU this weekend, and
Yeah.
ends up
He
being the
could
best player
rock
from this
that
draft.
game.
Like I none of that would surprise me. I bet Duke actually comes out guns blazing against TCU, being like, all right, well, we took them a little too lackluster. We're not making that mistake again. But when all of the concerns immediately get reinforced and elevated and highlighted against a team that they should have destroyed, I do think it is notable. Any other takeaways from this game? I thought Dame Sar was huge in the second half with his
Thank you. That was
defense.
going to be the only
Yeah,
thing that
go
I
ahead.
was going to touch on. I think just that SAR's defense, like, it is impossible for Duke to win this game without some spectacular defensive playmaking from Dame Sar. Like, you could touch on, Caden Boozer's brilliance as
He
a
was awesome today.
offensive. He was fantastic. Like, this is why I liked him in the lottery coming into the season. Like, I felt like a fool for most of the season, but at least a little bit of my logic is starting to
You
show
weren't
out in
wrong,
some
just early.
regard. Yeah, never wrong, just
Never
early,
wrong.
right? Never ever, not even once. But yeah, there's some plays from some guys that you could point to offensively as the reason why. Dame Sar's defense, like that Kawhi Leonard-esque block at the rim to deter the dunk, was just, if you're a defensive minded NBA coach, you see that play, you're like, give me this guy in my locker room. Like, we'll figure the rest out. Let me just get this dog on my team.
All right, where do you want to jump to next? Unless you had
I
anything else
mean,
on any of these guys.
oh, no, I mean, I could go forever on those games. I'll give you the choice between, we could do the closing moments of VCU UNC, or I could talk about my Razorbacks if you want.
You know what? Let's tease the people. Let's get to North Carolina VCU since it was one of the later games. Um, that's about as embarrassing of a loss for North Carolina as you can possibly have. They were up by like 20 at some point, or at least high
Yeah.
teens. And what a total and utter collapse down the stretch. I thought the coaching was horrible. I thought they got really tight. I hated the timeout that North Carolina called with like 8 seconds left when they had
Yeah.
like almost a 3-on-2 break out of the inbounds. I wish when the game was tied, like why are you letting VCU get their defense set and then out of that timeout you run one of the worst plays that gets disrupted and you turn it over anyways. But you could very clearly see that entire North Carolina offense tighten up, get really hesitant. All of the confidence was gone, and I just hate that this is how their season ended based on how the first couple months were looking with Caleb Wilson, and that injury just totally derailed their season.
It did, man. Like, first off, I think that there's a lot of narrative stuff going on with the draft. Go figure. At this point of the of the draft cycle, and a lot of players, even some of my favorites, are being hyped up really high. Could you imagine how much of a non-event this would have been if Caleb Wilson would have been like available and healthy for tonight? Like it completely changes the game, completely changes everyone's perception of, Hubert Davis as a college coach, just like he has done the entire season. Like you're talking high-low action between he and Vasar,
Yeah.
and Vasar is really the only true big on this team right now, and you could really, swap him, Wilson, and Stevenson in these kind of like pseudo platoon type rotations. Will Caleb Wilson changes his game? It probably changes the seating, obviously if he's fully healthy, but
Yeah.
whatever. But as far as North Carolina goes, like I messaged the group chat that it was like a 16-point lead. I want to say it was like 12-ish minutes left or something like that in the second half. And I was like, well, my VCU upset looks bad now. And I'm paying attention to some other games. And then I look back up at the scoreboard. I'm like, never mind. Like, let's put this game back on. And it was really cool, man, because Terrence Hill Jr. goes
What
for
a game.
34 points off of 13 of 23 shooting, 7 of 10 from deep, 5 boards, 5 assists. Looks awesome, and this is a player who I wrote about back in January when I was like doing my, sleeper prospects of the week. And you could see like this spark plug kind of scoring guy. So seeing him be able to do this, a couple months later in the tournament was spectacular. Like just willed this team. Like Djokovic had some moments where he was fine. Nick Lewis had moments where he looked good as
Yeah.
well. But Terrence Hill Jr. just like really stole the show. He was super confident. And I also want to, on the opposite, I'm kind of a mess right now. Excuse
No,
me.
you're
I'm
good.
sorry. But the UNC side of things, like Seth Trimble did his normal Seth Trimble thing where he like plays his heart out. He makes clutch plays. He tries his best to put the team in positions to win the game. I thought when he stole the ball, like even missing
Like,
that
oh, he's
three
gonna make
point
it.
shot, yeah, even missing that shot going to overtime, it just feels like he's like an X factor in Madden. Like when he makes a play like
Yeah.
that, the X underneath him goes red and he's just going to will the rest of the game. It was crazy in overtime though, because I don't think anyone scored for like the first
Oh,
3-ish minutes
it's like
of,
first bucket's gonna win.
yeah. And to your point, what a crazy collapse. Like, even though the game went into overtime, you could argue whatever, like that UNC came back and then they collapsed in overtime. But oh man, like I don't even know like where to assign, the biggest slice of blame pie, because I felt like the players overall did good individually. It just feels like the cohesion is not that great. And I think to your point that you laid out earlier, like that's a coaching thing.
That's kind of where I fall with it, unfortunately. And obviously it's super easy for me to say from here, not part of that coaching staff, knowing what's going on. But
Sure.
anytime you get 26 from Henry Vasar and 15 from Seth Trimble, that's a game you have to win. And
Yeah.
I you mentioned it. Seth Trimble was awesome tonight. I mean, 15 points, 5 of 11 shooting, whatever, but 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, just 1 turnover. That's about as ideal of a stat line as you can get from him. And that's the type of player he is. But given the injury to Caleb Wilson, given the fact that some of their transfers haven't panned out like we hoped coming into the year, like Luka Bogovac, I thought has been a kind of a disaster all year.
Yeah.
Jonathan Powell has been really underwhelming and disappointing. Kyan Evans hasn't lived up to what we hoped coming over from Colorado State. And Seth Trimble really had to take the reins. Now he's the upperclassman. He's been there for a long time. You expect him to be able to do that, and he did. But if you're really going to advance in the tournament, if you're really going to make some noise, that he's not that type of player. And that's no fault to him. It's just kind of how the cards fell given the injury and the lack of development and cohesion with the rest of the roster. But that's how it fell. Henry Vasar, I this was the first time this year where I really started being like, oh, yeah, there are some issues on defense that people have been
Yeah.
harping on. The offense was really good, 26 points, 9 of 18 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers, but just 1 steal, no blocks. I thought his pick and roll coverage got really messed up. He got caught in no man's land, blown past a couple times. Like Nick Lewis got downhill a ton, 16
Mm-hmm.
points, 6 of 7 from the line. The freshman looks awesome. I love his game. And then just Terrence Hill, 7 of 10 from three. 34 points. He was a flamethrower, and they couldn't do anything about it. And then they just had no one on the offensive end who could just steady the ship, calm people down, get a clean, easy look, get downhill effortlessly, draw a foul, do anything simple. And that, for me, my interpretation of that, a lot of that lack of confidence, a lot of that hesitation and uncertainty stems from coaching.
And it's a shame too, because I think that Derek Dixon could have been the
Yeah.
player, and maybe even I might even be as bold to say probably should have been the player,
Yes. Agreed.
even though he's young, right? Like pretty young,
Full
like
season, you're
in terms.
basically a sophomore.
Yeah, exactly. And you've seen your full share of important games by this point. Like this is not your first big game in
Yeah.
a Tar Heel uniform. I really feel like he probably should have been the guy to steady the ship, because he is savvy. He does see the floor well. He does balance that ability to like pass people open with some pretty good shooting and scoring ability. He's got great size too. I feel like he probably should have been like a mismatch hunter in
Yeah.
this game. Like you could be running pick and roll actions to get whichever poor soul on VCU that doesn't want to catch a bigger body and find him. But again, that wasn't necessarily the offensive focal point either. And I understand the reason why not, but it all comes down to guard play. We say this all the time. It's said a lot and it's nauseating, but if it's said a lot, there's probably some truth to it, that the tournament comes down to guard play. This game is a perfect example as to why. What did the guards do on UNC in the closing moments? What did the guards do for VCU do in the closing moments? That's why the game went the way that it went.
So you're saying for your sideline out of bounds play with 8 seconds left, your first choice wouldn't be to inbound it to your 7-footer?
No, he's probably not touching it first. Like to be honest, like I don't
I thought
necessarily
they
have
were just,
the.
I thought they were just going to throw it in the backcourt and then sprint up into like an empty corner pick and roll or something. And I just thought they made it way more difficult than it needed to be.
They did, and to be honest, like I wouldn't have minded the offense running through Vasar, like in theory, but probably just not that immediate and not in that position. You know what I mean? Because Vasar is a sharp dude. I mean, he had 4 assists
Yeah.
tonight. We know that he's got some positional playmaking, so I could understand that. Like, let's get that to our biggest guy who has great vision as well. And let's see if he can find somebody cutting off of him. Maybe he's setting one of these, like DHO screens and finding someone diving to the basket. Maybe that's the logic behind it, but it was not executed.
Yeah. Like theoretically, it makes a lot of sense. But I
Yeah.
just, again, I just didn't like that timeout to begin with. But whatever. I
It
still
didn't
think
look like a play that they run very much. Like that's
no.
what I think the big issue is. It's like, hey guys, we're gonna try this.
Like, yeah, very good
Probably
point.
not the time. Yeah.
Let's bounce over to Arkansas versus Hawaii. Talk to me about your Razorbacks, who ended up winning 97-78. Ton of big names on Arkansas. Obviously, Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas,
Yeah.
Billy Richmond. And the preview show this morning that I did, I was like, I cannot be clear enough. I don't think this is going to happen, but there could be a funky world where Arkansas gets upset here, given the weirdness of Hawaii's like no switching defense. Either they're going to blow Hawaii out, or Hawaii's going to make them turn them into some really inefficient isolation scores that can't get the job done, and just kind of disrupts their offense enough. That wasn't the case. Just monster win for Arkansas in this one.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things that I'm taking away from this game, and I kind of got like one fun question to ask you out of it that has nothing to do with Darius Acuff or Billy Richmond, so this will be fun.
I
Something
hate
to
it
take
already.
note of. Yeah, it's going to be a really good time. Nick Pringle. No, I'm just kidding. The starting five, I didn't know this looking at it, but when I went to look at the box score, I was like, I felt like everybody like just could pass the ball ridiculously well in this game. Like we had, I want to say like somewhere between 11 to 15 lobs, and I was like, oh my gosh, like we just like everyone was throwing lobs to everyone. Like Malik Thomas was throwing lobs to Nick Ewan. Like even Trevon Brazil, it felt like was throwing lobs. Like everybody was able to get a dunk in this game. And looking at the box score, every one of our starting five got assists. Trevin Brazil got 1 assist, but everybody else got at least 3 or more assists. Like the ball movement from
Mhm.
Arkansas was phenomenal. Now, of course, Arkansas has this kid named Darius Acuff Jr. You probably heard of him if you watch like ESPN or if you're on Draft Twitter. A lot of people, and listen, I am a huge Darius Acuff fan. Like, and this pains me as a Razorback fan and a Darius Acuff fan. In no world should this guy be drafted #1 overall. Like, even
Yeah,
if he returns, even in this crazy world where he might return like #1 pick value, you probably still don't draft him #1. Probably not even #2. Probably not even #3. Like, if you talk yourself into 4, I'm not there, but maybe. Okay.
yeah,
Um, he had 24 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, 1 steal. It felt very quiet, if that makes sense. Like the 24 points that he got did not feel as loud as what some of his other major performances are, which I think is great because we
mhm,
saw a great game from Malik Thomas. His confidence lately has been sky high, like the way
yes,
that he's playing. And something that I've really appreciated, like as a Razorback fan, Metcalf, is that not only is he just like one of these guys who's offensively gifted, but he's rebounding and he's playing pretty daggum good defense. And he's stronger than what you think he would be, which kind of leads me to my question here. Are we sure that Malik Thomas like isn't a top 20 pick in this year's class?
no, no.
We're not sure? Or you're
I
saying no, he's not?
no, I'm saying we're not sure. Not
If you
many
pay
guys,
attention to what he's doing lately,
not many guys have had a
he's
better last month than Malik Thomas. And I today 21 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, no turnovers for an off-ball scoring guard. What else do you want? And that has been more of the case than not recently. Which is really frustrating because you think you have a guy kinda nailed down, be like, "Ah, man, like, I
mm-hmm.
like a lot of the tools, but next year he's gonna explode, it's gonna get nasty." And are we sure that next year isn't in the NBA? Um, and that's where I'm really struggling because I still have a lot of Arkansas film to go back through and really, continue the deep dive, but over the last month, every time I throw them on, it's like, "Oh, man, Malik's doing something nice. Oh, that was a nice read out of the DHO. Oh, he read that weak side defender really nicely. Oh, the defensive effort there is really good, and the defensive effort all year has been really good. The execution has
Mm-hmm.
just been a little inconsistent, but the want to and the desire, all those cliches we always harp on, those have been there all year. So it's tough because I've kind of been out on him. He's been in like that early second round range for me for a while, just because he's also not my favorite type of player. But I think every single month he continues to show us that he is more than what our preconceived notions may have been.
And we talk about trying to find these wings, these Dalen Swains of the world, Braylon Mullins, I'm a big Braylon Mullins guy, Cam Carr. We're talking about all these guys who are we sure this isn't a lottery level wing?
Yeah,
And just brick by brick, I think Malik has been building his case. And again, this is not just like a Trey Johnson thing where he's just like a nuclear scorer and you kind of hope that the playmaking comes around and maybe he'll grow into a decent defender. Malik has been doing the ancillary stuff. And as much as we talk about the Calipari guard stuff with Darius Acuff Jr., like how many times is like the second or third most productive guard in a Calipari system like ultimately end up being
yeah.
like just as good, maybe if not even better than the primary? Like we could be kind of getting into that scary territory with Malik. And I'm glad that I'm not just like a crazy Razorback fan here. That's why I wanted to bounce that off you.
No, Razorback fans have been rather vocal, letting me know how ridiculous my skepticism with Malik has been all year. And hey, so far they're winning out because just we mentioned it with AJ, but that in season improvement
Yeah.
um, is what we love to see, especially from freshmen, and we're seeing it from Malik Thomas. So I'm really excited for what their run could continue to look like, and if they get to the point of facing Arizona, that's going to be a really fun game. The just two
I'm
very
scared.
different styles, but fingers crossed for it.
Yeah.
Let's bounce around just kind of rest of these games. We're not going to dive super deep unless there was
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
that you really wanted to dive into.
Um, no, so I have 3 box scores printed out. Anybody who doesn't know, like I print out the box scores of these games when we do these shows because it helps me organize my thoughts. I watched a little bit of the TCU Arizona State game. This was going on when I was at the
Ohio
doctor's
State.
office. Ohio State, thank you for the correction.
Yeah.
Micah Robinson had moments when I watched this game where he looked really, really fun. David Punch, of course, is kind of like the name, the preeminent name for the Horned Frogs. He looked good. I saw moments from Devin Royal where he was impactful
Hmm.
in the game. Looking at the box score, I'm surprised that it's quote only 14-5 and nothing else because I felt like his presence was kind of like all over the court. There were times where I looked and saw Christoph Tilly was like on his way to like a 27-7 LeBron James style game. Like, oh my gosh, where did this come from? I didn't pay a whole heck of a lot of attention to it, like I said, but I don't know if you saw any of it or could speak to it anymore. It just looked like a very fun game, even though I picked it wrong. It was a 2-point loss, so it was just as much of a pick'em game as it could possibly be.
Yeah, I thought David Punch was okay. He looked a little uncomfortable early. Picked up a couple early fouls, but some good defensive stuff. Solid stat line. I mean, 16 and 13. Tough to complain too much about it. I thought Xavier Edmonds was really good, especially on the game winner. The composure and the patience with the shot fake, with the shot clock running down at the end of the game. Really impressed with him overall, and I thought he's had a really nice season. Um, I missed big on this game because I thought Ohio State's backcourt with John Mobley and Bruce Thornton was going to be enough, and kind of the big difference maker, while Devin Royal and Bynum could kind of hold their own against Punch and Edmonds. I thought Bynum and Royal held up their end of the bargain. Mobley just off shooting night. Bruce Thornton, I don't know what you're
Was
doing.
not good. Was not
You,
good.
3 of 9 in 40 minutes. What are we doing? And then my biggest issue, the game winner, you got 4.5 seconds to go full court, and you're jogging up and settle for a half court heave after a pitch back on the inbounds play that where the recipient of the pass is below the free throw line is a horrible play design. No sense of urgency from anyone. And Bruce Thorne's going to end his record setting Ohio State career on that crap. I thought
Yeah.
that was like, we were harsh on UNC's coaching. I thought this was an abject disaster and
Yeah.
like almost like, are we sure we want this guy around type of decision making down the stretch from Ohio State. It was awful. And for that to be the encapsulation of their season after being punked and bullied in the first half and doing all that work to climb back into this game and make it so it's just a 2 point game. You got 4.5 seconds left. You did all this work, and that's the best you can come up with, a lackluster half court heave. I thought that was really, really embarrassing.
Yeah, and I caught the last few moments of that game and I saw that play and I think Amari Bonham, who I'm still very high on,
Hmm.
like moving forward. I don't know if he's gonna be a Buckeye next year or not. He might be a good looking Wolverine next year, Metcalf, if you're lucky. Um his response to it just kind of like encapsulated everybody else's, or he just kind of like, really, like that's how we're gonna end the
Yeah,
game is from that shot. Yeah, it was frustrating to watch. I could only imagine how Bynum felt.
agreed. Michigan State
Yeah, talk about it.
slaughtered North Dakota State. I thought North Dakota State was going to be able to at least keep this close in the beginning, or at least first half. I think Trayson Anderson and Travian Carson, we talked about them on Sunday's show. I think
Yep.
they're interesting. They didn't show up at all, and this is just pure domination from State, start to finish. Huge blowout win for them. Great for me for the Survivor contest over on Splash Sports. Shout out to all those who signed up. Um,
Yeah.
but that worked out nicely for me. Did you have anything on this game, or you want to bounce to something else? Because
Let's
I
bounce
didn't
this.
have anything meaningful
I
here.
did not watch this game. Like, this was my time to like say hi to my wife
Yeah,
and kids and
the
eat a piece of pizza and go
time well
back to the
spent.
office. Yeah. Um I thought you were going to go to the Michigan route. I want to give you an
Oh yeah.
opportunity to talk about your team because I mean, we've saw how some other teams like played with their food a little
Hmm.
bit today. It felt like Michigan was not one of those games. Like I tried to balance 3 games. I'm just not one of those people who can like multi-screen to that degree. But every time I looked at Michigan, I was seeing like great, like your backcourt. like really showed up tonight with,
Yeah.
Gale, McKinney looked good in the moments that I saw them. Like, how do you feel about that game?
Yeah, and at halftime, it looked like it's like, "Oh god, Michigan is toying with their food," like you said, because 'cause they're only up 4 at half, but Howard, I think, was 10 of 13 or 10 of 14 from 3 at the half, so I was like, "Oh my god, is it gonna be one of these games?"
Yeah.
And Howard only ended up making 4 threes after that, so that they cooled off, they came back to earth, still shot 48% from 3 on the game, but Michigan's size and physicality was way too much. And like you said, the backcourt stepped up in a big way. Namari Burnett, 15 points, 3 of 4 from three was massive. Roddy Gale, 14 points, 6 of 7 from the floor, 2 of 3 from three. That's one of his best scoring games of the season.
Yeah.
Playing back close to home, where he grew up. Trey McKinney, double digit scoring. But I think the biggest number here is Elliot Cadeau, only 5 points, but 9 assists, 1 turnover. And that's been the
Yeah.
big issue where he's gotten in foul trouble or he's had turnover issues. Only 1 foul, only 1 turnover. Awesome, awesome game from him. And then Moroz Johnson, 21 points, 8 of 8 from the floor, 10 rebounds, a steal and a block. A Daimara, 19, 8 for 10 from the floor, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 blocks. Their size was just overwhelming. Yaxel Lendeberg didn't have to do really much of anything in this game, and good because he didn't do anything. Um,
Yeah.
so at half, he's like, oh God, they're going to just toy with their food here. This is going to be like a repeat of the Duke performance. And then in the second half, they got down to business and pulled away in a big way.
I don't mind in like the opening games of the tournament when like the quote unquote star player, like how I mentioned earlier with Darius Acuff, it felt like a quiet performance.
Yeah,
I don't mind that Yaxel didn't have his biggest night of the tournament tonight because I think if you can win in the opening like round of 60, what is it? Oh God,
64.
I'm in 64. I almost said 68. In
Well,
that
that's
round
if,
of
if you're including the play in, there you go.
the plan, yeah. But the round of 64, um, if you can build the confidence of your teammates around you, like if a Daymara can have like a night like this before going up against some of like the bigger fish within
Hmm.
this tournament, you want to build the confidence, especially if like the guard play coming in off the bench. When you lost, gosh, Kaysen, right?
Yeah,
The backup guard, that was something that I know that you mentioned. Like, what is the guard play for this team going to look like without him? I think getting McKinney's confidence built up, getting Gale's confidence built up, even though, you touched on Cadeau, looking at the box score and remembering like going back and watching him play, I'm like, he only had 5 points. Like, that's incredible. Like, I thought his impact felt much greater than that. So, again, for Yaxel, don't worry about this. You
yeah.
want him to have his big game the next round or maybe the subsequent. So it was nice to see Mara go off, and Morez, of course. Seeing your sweet prince play the way that he did.
He's perfect. Sticking in the
Yeah.
Big Ten, huge win for Nebraska, just dismantling
Mm-hmm.
Troy 76-47. I thought Troy could potentially have a sneaky shot at this with Thomas Dowd. And Nebraska's been, I think they're 6-6 over their last 12 to end the year. And they really run on, all right, is Price Sanford and Rink Mast making shots? Yes. Cool. They look awesome. No. Cool. They suck. And Price Sanford was awesome today. And 23 points, 7 of 12 from three. And conversely, Thomas Dowd didn't show up at all. Just 1 of 11 from the floor, 0 of 6 from three. And congrats, Nebraska ball, with their first tournament win in program history. You'll love to see it
Yeah.
because if the season they had would have ended with an upset against a 13 seed, that would have been brutal because they deserved way more than that.
Yeah, almost got like how you mentioned. I thought about getting cute with this one too. I'm like, oh,
I
Troy's
did.
like really well
I
coached,
knew
and
it wasn't going to happen, and it's just like, oh, but what if? And it's like, God, what are you doing?
yeah, one of these teams has to be the upset, right? Like it's not supposed to make sense. It's just supposed to happen, right?
Right.
So, yeah, Price Sanford.
He's good.
Where are we thinking draft wise? Like
He's
early
he's a
mid
next year
second?
guy. He's a next year
You think
guy.
so?
I have him in my second, but and if he has another year, he has an oh not if he has another year of eligibility, just go back.
Yeah.
Um, and enjoy
Yeah,
your
you're
final
right.
year of college where he's going to be just a stud. And
Play with Frager again. Yeah, I love
yeah,
Frager too. He's so much fun. When did Nebraska basketball get to be so much fun to watch? It all comes down to making threes, though. Like that's the
it
thing.
does.
Like
It does.
it's a
They're super volatile.
It's crazy that the Coach Hoiberg is coaching this team. Like, could you imagine if Chicago played basketball the way that this Nebraska basketball team is coaching? Corey might still watch them, you know. So,
Yeah, and well,
fun game.
and speaking of upsets that did work out, High Point eked out a win over number 5 Wisconsin, 83-82. Shout out to Chase Johnston, who made his first 2-point field goal of the year
Such a
today, and it was the game
stupid
winner.
story. That was so awesome. I've never
um,
seen such a minuscule fact be celebrated as crazily as that was.
I don't know why this guy doesn't play more. He's shooting like almost 50% from three
He
on
doesn't shoot twos. I
on
don't
like
know.
20. Oh, yeah, he's taking like 17 threes per 100 and making half of them. Like, can we get the guy a few more minutes? I thought this was I thought Wisconsin was going to steamroll High Point, given how
I did
Nick Boyd
too.
and John Blackwell were playing. They have, three almost 7-footers, and High Point dominated the offensive glass with 13 offensive boards. I thought this was a rough look for Wisconsin, but a huge first tournament win in program history for High Point, and they earned it. It wasn't just like a fluke elite shooting night. They were 38% as a team. It was doing all the little things on the boards and taking care of the ball. So a really, really good win for them.
Yeah, and Owen Aquino is one of these like weird front court players that Maxwell and I had talked about for no ceilings. It feels like
Hmm.
for the past couple of seasons, and it's cool to see that he's a part of this team and doing things. I'll be honest, like I was nervous about Arkansas Wisconsin potential matchup in the next round
Yeah.
because like the guard play between those two teams could be interesting. Now I got to worry about High Point. Is this the Sweet 16 darling that we got to watch out for now? So fun game, very fun game. Like again, the 2-point shot being celebrated the way that it was, and that kid pulled up from the freaking logo
Yeah.
and shot that shot and just hit it just beautifully. Like that's just expected of him. I'm interested to see how Coach Calipari. He was asked about that too, like during the game. He's like, "Have you seen much High Point?" He's like, "No." They're like, "Well, you're going to be playing him." He's like, "Yeah, I know. I'm prepared for this game that we're about to play right now." So we'll watch them later. So I'm interested to see how we do against them and how Darius A. Cup Jr.'s defense holds up against the 3-point shooting.
And while High Point was able to pull off the upset that a lot of people liked, the upset that I loved, South Florida over Louisville, didn't come to fruition. Louisville
Yeah.
ekes out a 4-point win, 83-79. And I thought South Florida dominated this game. They just couldn't make a shot. 39% from the floor, 15% from three. They had 15 steals in this game, and it felt like almost every single one of them ended up in the bucket going the other way. Louisville did absolutely everything in their power to throw this game away. 22 turnovers. Isaiah Nelson on South Florida had an awesome game, 22 points, 9 of 17 shooting, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals. He was everywhere. Guys, and they had 15 steals as a team. So everyone was getting steals, but Wes Ennis and Joseph Pinion just couldn't buy a shot from outside, especially early on. And they combined to shoot like 37% on almost 600 attempts together. They were, Ennis was 0 for 11 and Pinion was 5 for 14. So they just couldn't buy a jumper tonight, despite what I thought was domination across basically every other category.
Yeah, and Pinion had 27 on that efficiency. Like, imagine if a
Yeah.
few more of the shots went in. Like, he was due for a monster night that just didn't come into fruition. And this was without Michael Brown playing for
Yeah.
Louisville. So people were thinking that this could be an upset even with Michael playing. With him definitely not. It almost felt like a sure thing that the Bulls could have pulled this win out. I also picked that game. I drank the Kool-Aid. Felt like it should have happened, but turns out that Louisville, even without Michael, still has talent, which I don't think that a lot of people, myself included, um, thought that the talent of Louisville was going to be that good without Michael. Um, I I don't know if we could expect Michael to lace up his sneakers in the next game against Michigan State, going up against the dirtiest point guard in college basketball. I wouldn't expect that to happen. So it might take one more win before we see Michael.
Though the one upset that I did get right today, Texas A&M 63, St. Mary's 50, 10 seed taking down the 7 seed, and
I
the
called that
thing
one too.
the thing with St. Mary's a lot this year has been, all right, is Mikey Lewis knocking down shots? Yes, they look great. No, they're putting up 50. He ended up with 5 points on 2 of 8 shooting. Paulius Morauskas, 4 points, 1 of 6 shooting off the bench. Dylan Shaw's a guy I've really liked and been intrigued with long term, 8 points, 3 of 7 shooting. Joshua Dent, same story. But that where I like him long term. He was the only guy on St. Mary's who showed up today, 18 points, 7 of 14 shooting, just not enough. Texas A&M was just a little too much and a little too consistent as from a team concept for St. Mary's to deal with. Vanderbilt was close against McNeese. Is looking like, oh, the Garway Dual experience. That we
Yeah.
finally got the Garway Dual game. Too much talent on Vanderbilt. They pulled away late. That's kind of all I got. Anything else from you?
Yeah. No, I think Aggie, whenever he's done with basketball, is going to be an NFL tight end, much like we
Yeah.
just saw with Dowd coming out of Notre Dame. And Tyler Tanner had a huge game, big game for McLaughlin too. For Vanderbilt,
Yep.
I did watch a little bit of that. I watched absolutely zero of A&M and St. Mary's, so that was another game that I just like didn't touch. But I'm glad that my bracket, reflected what actually happened. So that's always nice.
And we are recording this while the 4 night games are going on. Currently, Houston is up at halftime, 48-24. Illinois is up 47-38. About 4 minutes into the second half, Gonzaga down to Kennesaw State, 21-25. 3 minutes left in the first, so a lot of
Oh,
time
that's
left.
not bad.
But
Yeah,
and
not
then
what you want to see.
St. Louis up huge on Georgia at halftime, 49-32.
I picked St. Louis. Feel good about that one. Yeah.
They're fun, man. They got like 4
Yeah.
guys who are shooting almost 10 threes per 100 at over 40%. When they're hot, they're dangerous. But
Yeah.
we're going to wrap it up there. I'll be back in the morning previewing Friday's games. We're going to try and do that every game day. Back for another night shift tomorrow, recapping the day. Shout out to everyone joining. It's March Madness, baby. Let's have some fun. You can find all our stuff, NoCeilings.nba.com, NoCeilings YouTube. On all socials, he is Stephen Gilaspie at Stephen G Hoops. Go give him a follow. Read all the stuff at the sites I just mentioned. I'm Tyler Metcalf.
Thanks
You
for
can
the
follow me.
subs and getting us to 22K, by the way.
Yes,
You
you guys
fans
are the
out
best.
there, love you guys.
On to 23. Find all my stuff at TMACF11, yada, yada, yada. If you enjoyed this episode, rate, review, subscribe, hit that like button, turn notifications on. We'll see you tomorrow. Let the
Good
madness
night.
continue.